to us for pharma, and that really is the challenge. But what really is the challenge for pharma? Pricing? Is it US FDA or is it both? Now, two big companies have come out with numbers so far, three actually, DRL, Lupin and Cipla, and the fourth one, Sun Pharma, is due to come out with numbers today. And Pankaj, how is the positioning looking for large cap pharma?
Well, Nikunj, thanks for that. If we just look at what's happened with the pharma space so far, as you pointed out, three large cap companies, two mid cap companies have declared numbers and continued slowdown as far as US business is concerned. That's probably the key takeaway. That's probably the key number that one would like to say. And this has had a trickle down effect as far as EBITDA is concerned, or a larger effect as far as EBITDA is concerned. Despite new launches, despite cost cutting initiatives by big companies in the pharma space to maintain their margin, despite a weak base effect on a quarter-on-quarter basis, numbers are not particularly looking that good. Margins for most of the companies have been falling in the last 4 quarters. There was expectation that this will be stable this quarter, but so far you've not even seen that pressure coming in. What has this led to? This has led to huge EPS cuts coming in on the street, despite last 6 quarters seeing big EPS cuts. Now, companies like Strides and Granules also came out with numbers. Their base in US is particularly very strong. I mean, even if they do 1 or 2 launches of a very high drug or a highly competitive drug, they would still be able to see some amount of upgrades, but they've also not been able to see. You've seen EPS downgrades for companies like Cipla to the tune of 7-8%, to the tune of Dr. Reddy's about 6%, Lupin slightly close to about 5-6%. Names like Granules as well as Strides have seen a much larger sort of impact. Just wanted to highlight some commentary. Strides Sashin says US pricing pressure has delayed growth in the US market, and that has impacted the numbers. When you look at Dr. Reddy's, they have said that supply issues have continuously had an impact as far as business in US is concerned, so they expect the base price business erosion to continue. When Lupin was asked about what will happen in the US business, they said incrementally it will grow, but they are not expecting any major growth to reverse back pretty soon.
Oh yes, indeed, that would be the case. And so let's dive into the discussion with Praful Bora as well as Debayan Ghosh. Praful, come to you first. How are you sizing up what's happening in the business cycle of pharma majors back home, because the trouble doesn't seem to end?
So I think the downward trend that started in the US pricing a couple of years back, I think that's still going on. Probably this quarter you've seen McKesson pricing pressure which was there. So I think that's something which is likely to continue in my my mind, because even if you look at the commentaries of the companies, okay, I think they are still talking of at least a low double-digit kind of a price erosion. So that's significantly higher than the 5% number that we were all baking in earlier. So I think overall the dynamics have changed considerably, and I think the pricing pressure is something that now companies will have to live with.
Mr. Ghosh, what is the reality? Biosimilars, we are talking about, or the new trend the sector has started, the area which you are present. Generic pharma, there is a huge price erosion there. Everybody wants US healthcare costs to come down, and yet generic players, they should gain. In fact, they are losing.
Yeah, see, what I think is in terms of the biosimilars, this in terms of the US FDA, as I had mentioned during the last interview, I mean the floodgates have just opened a couple of years back, to the world, and prior to that, the US FDA was not even open to biosimilars. So it's just the teething period. But with the new healthcare reality in the United States, I don't think they have any other option than to allow the biosimilars from companies like Biocon in India, and to come in and to help them out. Because if you look at, for example, the rheumatoid arthritis drug Humira, which is adalimumab, which is the largest selling drug in the world last year, which was around $17-18 billion. Now that treatment costs a patient around $200,000 per year, and I think that's kind of unaffordable for even the patients in the United States, and the insurance companies are not very happy to sign off the checks. So biosimilars is the only solution for that. So there may be, as you might have seen in the recent past, some observations on Indian companies who is trying to launch their products in the United States. But in the long run, I would say this is a good thing, and I would say this is the floodgates are just opening up.
From now, what could change for the Indian pharma sector? Will US FDA problems get reduced? Will pricing improve? Will new approvals come in? Because Praful, we can talk about what's gone wrong, but a year from now, things would change. I mean, 2 years ago, it was all evergreen, hunky-dory for Indian pharma sector, and in last 2 years, we've seen a virtual collapse. A year and a half from now, will the cycle reverse again on the upside this time?
So, if you look at the whole dynamics, I think there's been some green shoots in the US market for now. There have been companies, large companies like Teva, Mylan, everyone is just rationalizing the portfolio. So probably that's going to help the players, who the remaining guys who are there in the market. So I think to that extent there have been some green shoots. Somewhere this has to end, So maybe at some point of time companies will say, we can't really go below this point, because that's going to hurt the ROCs, it's going to hurt the margins. So beyond the point, I think it will be unviable for a lot of companies to manufacture, and I think a lot of companies will go through portfolio rationalizations. So I think that's happening across, including smaller players, relatively smaller players like Cipla. Lupin, so to say, and even the larger players like Lupin, so Teva, Mylan, all these guys are also rationalizing the portfolio. So I think that's something which has been seen. Now, how much this is going to benefit would really depend on how much the overlap is. So say for example, an X company has say 35-40% overlap with Teva, then probably they're going to benefit a little more than someone else who's got a relatively lesser overlap. So I mean, it would still depend company to company, but on a broader level, I think there has been some green shoots. Companies are broadly talking, now they are probably at the bottom of the pricing pressure. So basically this number was closer to, some companies have witnessed pricing erosion in the range of 15-20% in the past. I think that's probably something that we are not hearing anymore. So I think most companies are talking of a low single double digit kind of a price erosion. I think incrementally we would not see the pricing pressure that I've seen in the last 2 years, but as a reality it would still be more than the 5% number that we saw in the past, from FY 14-15 levels.
Devan, how does India's competitive advantage stack up versus the rest of the emerging market world? And this really comes in from my evaluation of the interest that Warren Buffett showed for Israeli-based generic pharma companies.
See, I would say at this point in time, if you look at the US FDA, okay, the US markets and the US, Europe and Japan, okay, which is 90% of the biosimilars. The other biosimilar countries who are competing against India, China, Korea, Russia. If you look at the numbers, the sheer numbers, they may appear to be larger than India. But if you look at the kind of drugs they're dealing with in terms of the biosimilars, they're still like, the older generation immune drugs and, the monoclonal antibodies of the older generation, whereas India is actually in the path of developing the newer generation biological drugs. So the complexion is slightly different when it comes to India. So I would say as the companies invest in research and the large biotech intellectual pool in India is really is trying to influence the new generation biosimilars. For example, this instead of going for filgrastim, Indian companies would rather go for pegfilgrastim. Now, the speculated version of filgrastim, which you might have heard about, this Biocon's pegfilgrastim, which they're trying to launch in the United States, it's a much more advanced version. Okay, whereas the filgrastim, as such, may appear to be a much larger, in terms of sheer size of markets. But look, in terms of intellectual property, making a process patentable, gaining some more traction in terms of going ahead into the future. Pegfilgrastim, which is a value-added drug in terms of granulocyte colony stimulating factor for chemo-induced neutropenia. This is what India is getting involved in, and I see in days to come, that is what is going to really make a huge difference for India vis-a-vis our competing countries, in the space of biosimilars.
All right, gentlemen, appreciate your time. Glad you could join us. And as of now, I think it's too early to write off Indian pharma sector. But if you're a hand-on heart trader, if you're expecting magical things for next quarter, I don't think we are there yet. there is a cycle which has reversed, and the cycle will come, it will get reinvented, whether it is biosimilar or complex generic, things will evolve for the Indian pharma sector. I mean, IT has seen this platform jump, you know, between 95 and 1999, everybody was talking about Y2K. And then when Y2K opportunity got over, there was a big shakeout. So all I'm saying is that within the pharma also, complex generic and biosimilars are two areas which will make a comeback. The dependence on US will reduce, but pharma as a sector will revive and it will survive, but it will take some time. Kunal, for someone who says, look, you know, I'm not interested in the long-term 3-year story for pharma, I'm interested in an idea for today, tomorrow, at max next week. What should he or she buy? So sell. You can tell me a sell idea also.
No, I think from the buy side, Biocon still looks very attractive. So yes, the stock has run up extremely, sort of too much, but the chart patterns are still very stable and positive for the stock. So even at 640, 642 on spot levels, I think Biocon still merits maybe a short-term buy from current levels. The other stocks, I still believe that they are still in the process of lower highs and lower lows, and shorting these stocks at an oversold territory, names like Sun Pharma, Dr. Reddy, Glenmark, etc. I don't sense that this could be a good strategy. Wait for a reasonable sort of a bounce. If these stocks come back to their say key moving averages on short-term charts, then it could bring up some good shorting opportunities. There are two stocks which I'm highlighting now, other than pharma stocks. The first one is GSFC. On the daily charts yesterday, it was a bullish hammer pattern. Today is more or less like a continuation move, and the stock is bouncing from the oversold territory. So that's a buy. 120 as a target on GSFC, stop loss 109. And the second is the IT stock, Tata Elxsi, which I'm recommending as a buy again. Again, yet another short-term breakout on this 1215, 1210, 20 kind of a congestion zone. That also remains to be a stock in strong momentum. Targets of 1260 on Tata Elxsi, stop us at 1200.
All right, Kunal, thank you for those ideas. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll stay with the top story, which is that tracking 4 years of the Modi Sarkar from a market standpoint, are market participants impressed, disappointed, or they are still optimistic about the last leg of this year's this tenure of Modi government. So Nilesh Shah of Kotak AMC, CEO of Kotak AMC, will join us when we come back.